Welcome to My Big Story with Christopher Swan, the weekly show where I talk with amazing people about their story. A story that includes creating the life that they love, living a life of intention, and where we can learn from their stories. This week, Jim Babcock is on the show. His name may not be familiar to all, but if you've worked for the Walt Disney Company over the last 31 years, you probably know who he is and have seen him in action. He's truly loved by many. Jim is well known for hosting events internally to the Walt Disney Company. He also hosts events externally for them and for other organizations. On average, he hosts and presents 100 events a year. The funny thing, this hasn't been his full-time career while working at Disney. He does much of this in addition to his job. Jim has a fascinating story of leaning into opportunities, taking risks, and becoming closely associated with the Disney brand for thousands of cast members. From selling candy on Main Street in Disneyland to regularly hosting events with Disney CEO Bob Iger, to co-hosting a shopping program on TV selling Mickey Mouse watches, Jim has created a career and a life he loves, all while working for the mouse. Jim is also in a new phase of life, placing more focus on his passions and exploring additional adventures. This is a great conversation about staying open to opportunities and pursuing the things that spark your imagination. Plus, if you want a unique look into Disney, this would be it. Personally, this conversation was a real treat for me, as I've known Jim for years. In fact, I met him on my second day on the job for Disney after moving to Los Angeles. It's been amazing to see him grow over the years and now to share his story here. Everyone, meet Jim. Jim, so great to have you here today.
Christopher, I am thrilled to be here. Thank you.
My pleasure. Gosh, this is
my first podcast.
Really? Mm-hmm. That's actually pretty awesome. I actually really love that because I think it feels like it's a different energy when people are new to a show and, you know, they kind of don't know what they're doing, and it feels like it's just a conversation between you and me.
Okay.
But really, like I told you, 89 countries are listening to the show. So you will be popular in Taiwan, which is my fourth largest market.
Once again, popular in Taiwan. Yes.
I mean, you know, when they say big in Japan, not for me. It's really just Taiwan. Just Taiwan. Well, it is really so great to have you here. Actually, I want to jump into your story in an interesting place, not in the beginning, not in the, you know, where'd you grow up, that kind of thing. I kind of think you're practically celebrity status. That's how I look at this. When you walk around the studio or the campus, like everybody kind of knows who you are. Don't you think?
There are a lot of people who know who I am. However, I have to say that on the inside of my head, as I walk around, I'm constantly thinking, why do people know me? How did this happen? I think that for the rest of my life, I will never understand. You know, people will say, gosh, you were funny, or you did this. And I try to see it. I don't know if I always see it, but I appreciate it.
Let's explain exactly why I called you celebrity status.
Okay.
Because you are this master host and MC, and you have been doing this for quite a few years. And for the people that don't know you externally to the Walt Disney Company, the people inside of the company do. I want people outside of that to understand, what does it really mean to do the things that we're talking about?
So there are employee events where we're celebrating a holiday or the release of a film, something that's happening where we're all coming together and doing something. There are events like a coffee with Bob Iger. So people are randomly asked to come to this coffee session where they can sit down, listen to Bob give an update on the company, and then he'll take questions. So a lot of times they will ask me to come in and facilitate the Q&A so that it's not Bob up there having to figure out who's asking the next question. And so I've had the wonderful opportunity to work with him over the years, and he's an amazing guy. And I think he understands what the part that I play. I think I can bring out the fun and you know, and we play off each other.
Well, you've been doing it for so long.
So we've hosted a lot of events, admin a professionals dinner, there's so many different internal events that come up throughout the year. And so if it's a holiday party at the studio lot, or if it's a party celebrating a film over in Glendale on the campus over there, the Halloween event is probably attended by 4,000 or 5,000 people. It's the way that the Walt Disney Company employees and cast members celebrate Halloween. So it's on the studio lot, and the costume contest is kind of the pinnacle of the event. And I've hosted it for almost 30 years.
Wow.
Which is crazy.
That's crazy, Jim.
But I love it every year. And every year, like, they wait later and later to ask me, and I'm always thinking, oh, this is the year they're not going to ask me.
So wait, they actually still ask you?
They ask, yeah. And I always am thinking, hey, if you want somebody different, it's okay. You won't hurt my feelings, but it would. And they ask me each year.
And when we talk about companies and internal companies, when you think about the magnitude of these events, like you mentioned the Halloween, 4,000 or 5,000, like these events for people that are listening, like these events are big.
Right.
Like it's not just 50 people in a room. And even I know the coffee with like Bob Iger, I've been to one of those, and I can remember how exclusive it is to kind of get into it. Not exclusive in the sense of you had to be somebody specific, but it was, there's only so many seats.
Right.
And there's a lot of cast members. So I think this kind of, you're not just in front of 100 people, you're always in front of a ton of people.
A lot of people.
And you're kind of carrying the brand on your shoulders in a new way. How many events are you hosting a year, do you think?
Probably, I would say, out externally and within the company, probably over 100 per year.
Wow. Now you've started to do external events even further. And I think during the holidays, ran across you on, I think it was Evine Shopping Network or something.
Yeah.
So tell me about, like, how did you go from this, I'm hosting all these events internally, to cast members, to now I am a celebrity everywhere? I'm just going to keep calling you that, Jim.
I'm going to have you follow me around. I've never felt more important. So Evine obviously sells Disney product, and they sell Disney watches on their Invicta line. And so at work one day, and again, all of these things come about so randomly. It's never, picking up a phone and saying, is Jim available? It's always like, I'll be in a meeting and they're like, well, we need somebody else to be sitting on camera with the host. Somebody who's not really the expert on watches, but somebody who can talk about Disney and just have fun. And so they'll be like, hey, maybe Jim will do it. And then all of a sudden I'll be flying to Miami and being put in a studio and doing something like that. And I'm also a person, I never say no. I'm always like, yeah, I'll do that.
Oh.
Yeah, I'll do it. And then I'll think about it later, where I'll like, wow, I've committed to a lot of things, but it's just exciting and fun. And, I'm a huge Disney fan. I mean, I've worked for the company, like you said, over 30 years. And so...
Yeah, I think this year, I think we talked about, will be your 31st year 31st. In June.
Yep. June, it will be 31 years since I put on a little bow tie and a striped shirt and walked out to the Candy Palace on Main Street at Disneyland and sold peanut brittle.
So that was your first job at the Walt Disney Company?
Working on Main Street and selling product. And I just remember, they gave me the name tag in orientation, which is probably a $2 piece of plastic. And I literally accepted it. And then I think I turned around and like wept. I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. I took pictures of it. But I was just thrilled to be working for Disney. It was like my dream come true.
Well, let's go back there. So you didn't live in Los Angeles, which is where we're sitting and recording this now.
Right.
I believe that you're from Michigan. Give us a little bit of that background. Maybe not when I was 3, but give us...
Which was so long ago. The buffalo were roaming the country.
Exactly. Maybe take us from how did you go from I'm this kid in Michigan to now I'm selling, peanut brittle in the Disneyland park?
So I grew up loving Disney, and this was before Disney stores and a lot of the Disney presence there is today. And got out of college and was working for a company, and we had the summers off. We were working with school organizations, so we had the summer off. And a very good friend of mine had moved out to Los Angeles, and I wanted to, number one, I wanted to go to Los Angeles because for whatever reason, it was my dream to visit Los Angeles. Like I used to get the Rand McNally map out at home and stare at Los Angeles. I used to watch Emergency the show. And like they would be like, we've got a woman down on the corner of blah and blah, and I would map it. I would be like, where is that?
You go to your old school map and look.
I would be like, there she is. So so I was.
Wait, how old were you when you were doing this?
Okay, I was 19. No, so I was obsessed with Los Angeles, and so I thought, I've got the summer off. I'm going to go to Los Angeles, visit my friend, and that was my plan. So I went out there, and then I thought, I have no money. If I'm going to spend the summer out here, I've got to work. And so literally, I borrowed my friend's pickup truck, drove on the freeways of California, which is daunting when you're in a small town in Michigan growing up, and went down there and walked in and said, hey, I want to work here, and was shaking. And they were like, well, you have to have an appointment for an interview, but one just canceled. Would you like to go in? And literally, in 2 hours, I went in. I think I went and had lunch across the street, went in, and they offered me this merchandise position on Main Street. And I remember just walking out thinking, I think I was glazed over and in shock. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to work at Disneyland. And the weird thing is I'd never been to Disneyland. I'd only been to Walt Disney World. And so 2 weeks later, I'm in orientation and I'm working at Disneyland, and just every single day was like, I can't believe this. I can't believe this. I couldn't wait to get to work. And so I worked the summer and I went back to Michigan. And when I got back to Michigan, I was like, I can't stay here. I love Michigan, love my family, but I packed everything up, came back out, and continued working at Disneyland for 3 or 4 years.
Now, your story is so great. It's not completely unusual from somebody to start in the parks or at a TV station and work their way up through the company.
Right.
And that's what a beautiful thing about this company is. I did not know, first of all, your story about walking in, not having an appointment, which is kind of amazing. And then you end up getting the position.
I would probably still be selling candy on Main Street, but there was today, because I loved it. But at the same time, there was a program called the University Leader Program. And every year they would hire, or they would recruit 6 people from the entire cast of thousands at Disneyland. And those 6 people would represent Disney in all of the orientation programs for new people, for new cast members. Once I got into that program, then you were given a lot of intensive training on stand-up training and development. And once that happened, that paved the way for me to go up to the studio and have more of a professional job where you're sitting in an office and you are conducting training and development programs, and you're no longer working, in an hourly capacity out in the park. And so that put me into that's where my career took a turn. And I was doing stand-up training and development. And back in the day, we were training everything from, and I'm not kidding, we were training orientation on Monday. You would train like CPR. I'm not kidding. On Tuesday. On Wednesday, you'd be training like listening skills. On Thursday, you'd be training, like how to duck and cover for an earthquake. And on Friday, you would be training something about, management by responsibility. So you were this jack of all trades. You were training one of 50 classes.
It sounds a lot like it was just about different opportunities appearing as you were going.
Right.
Now, what do you think? Is it really just opportunities that just showed up, or were you actually manifesting those?
If you had asked me that question, Christopher, 20 years ago, I would be the person who'd be like, the stuff just keeps happening. It's great. It's wonderful. And now I'm going to do this and now I'm going to do that. Now being 56 and looking back on my career, I think one of the things was that even though I never believed, I was the last one to believe that I would be right to be doing something new and a new opportunity, I never backed down and I never said no. And I did put myself out there, and I made myself open to learn and be curious about things. Now that I look back, I think I did more than I realized to make some of that happen. Sure. I made myself open to that. And I was kind of fearless, now I think, man, Jim, you signed up for things that you had no idea what you're doing.
Like what?
Well, hosting that Halloween thing. I was like, I had no business doing that. Or stepping in front of 50 people to train a management by responsibility class. I mean, was I the expert? No. Was I a well-seasoned person to be doing that? Probably not. But I had a great supervisor who saw something in me, and I was open to it.
Why do you think you were fearless?
I don't know. I think the reason that I feel like I've always been, I love improv, and improv came to me later in life. I started doing improv in 2002. But there's something that's exciting to me to just jump into something and see how it goes,
really?
and to think quickly on your feet. So if I'm hosting something, a lot of the stuff that I host, when I'm walking out on stage, I have no idea what I'm going to say or do, and that is scary yet exciting to me. So it's kind of a rush.
This sounds also like it really blends into this improv work that you kind of you just touched on a little bit. When I arrived, you also shared a little bit about there's a couple shows that you guys have done that sounded really fun and really different. And especially somebody who's not an actor in Hollywood, but you're in a corporate life doing these things. Tell us a little bit about your improv world. What does it look like? What do you guys do?
I was at this, Disney has an offsite all the time, so the department was having an offsite, and they brought this improv group in from here in LA, and they were, letting us fill in blanks and getting up and participate. And I was sitting there thinking to myself, I have to do this. And I'm in a room of like 120 people. And so the improv group leaves. And as they're leaving, I don't know why I did this. I just jumped up from my seat, and I went. This is in the ABC building. I left, and I ran down the hall, and I probably look like a complete idiot. I'm chasing after this woman who probably thinks like, "Oh my God," and she turns around, and I said, "I love what you guys did. Oh my gosh, I love improv. How can I do it?" And she looks at me, and she's like, "Well, we're part of this group, and we have classes. Why don't you come to a class? One starts in 2 weeks." And so I, nervous out of my mind, went to this class and just started at the very basic foundation and went through all the classes. And improv is hard, and people don't realize it's not about being funny. It's about working as an ensemble and making each other look good and not trying to be funny, because the funny will come just based on the fact that you're making things up on the spot. And as we were doing it, I loved it. There are good nights, there are bad nights. It's a hard skill, but I remember thinking, this is like a drug. I love doing this. So went to class for years and years, and then a lot of us that were in these classes split off and formed our own company, and which is hard in this town. We formed our own company. We put up a show in Hollywood, 80s soap opera, which alone, because I was the biggest soap opera fan in college. If you asked me anything about General Hospital or One Life to Live, I'd be like, I know everything. So yeah, I know. I would watch a soap opera at a Sears while I'm shopping. I would sit in a recliner and I'd be like, oh.
Jim, there's so many things I want to ask right now or say. But
well, we put this 80s soap opera.
That's amazing.
And we're wearing 80s clothes, and we're talking about 80s things, and we're using cell phones that are the size of Utah.
Right.
And we're walking around, and people loved it, and they started coming, and they were paying for this town $15 a ticket to come and see an improv show is a lot. And so we started doing this, and for 4 years off and on we did The Rich and the Reckless, and which was awesome. And we had people that came back week after week, and it took place in the fictional town of Lenox Hill. My character was the biggest, just outrageously stupid, evil, just the person that made everybody's life miserable, yelled everything, and was completely ridiculous and had no idea what he was doing. It's very reminiscent of today. and had to wear a bad wig and a bad clothes and all of that. So,
well, here. I find this really interesting that you got so into that as well.
Yeah.
Others could easily get this light bulb moment where you had this, I've got to be part of that, I've got to do it, and start to transfer into more entertainment. And you could have easily said, I'm going to really pursue this. I mean, it's a crazy hard dream, but yeah.
Right.
But you didn't. So you did that, and you still stayed in a corporate environment, still doing this stuff. I guess my question for you on this is why? Why, if you love that so much as well, why stay here and do this?
Right.
And blend them.
It was kind of an interesting time in my life, but I think the thing that I liked about it is that I kept everything in a different drawer. So it was coming into work, and all of them were important to me.
Sure.
And so coming into work and doing my day job, which continued to grow, thankfully, and continuing to do more hosting. And there would be times when, I would be managing a team and making decisions and looking at budgets, and then I would get in my car and I would drive over to the studio lot and introduce Santa Claus during a snowstorm and give away Christmas trees for 20 minutes, and then get back in my car and go back and do my director job. And then that evening, literally drive over to Hollywood and change in my car while I'm driving and run in and do improv until 11 o'clock.
With your amazing wig and...
With my amazing wig, of course. And so I felt like I could do all of them. And they also kept me balanced. Work, no matter where you are, the Walt Disney Company or other companies, there's a stress factor. And especially as you move up in the organization, more responsibility. I think the hosting and the improv in the evening kept me balanced, and it kept my passion for comedy alive. So now that I'm older, I'm taking a look at that mix, and I'm wondering, how do I mix it up again? Because I feel like, depending on where you are in your life, you might feel like, hey, I've really got to put my job first, and I'm going to put my passion second. And I think right now in my life, I'm taking a step back, saying, how do I make the passion of the things that I love to do be in the forefront, and maybe back off of some of the other things? But I think you have to be in that part of your life to make that decision.
I would agree with that. I would also say that people find that time of their life in different ways. Let's talk a little bit about that. Maybe that fork in the road for you. You've been doing all these events. Clearly, I still can't get over like 100 a year. And
people are like, you would open an envelope. You would go to the opening of an envelope, and I go, you're right, I would.
So yes. You do this for so long. We haven't even touched on your day job, but I just slightly mentioned that there was this learning development. We talked a little bit about that in communications. So, but you were kind of in this other, like you said, fork in the road, that it's, where do I want to go next? What do I want to do? What does that look like for you? Like, even if you don't know the answer, like what are you thinking, or how are you getting there?
It's exciting. I think what I'm going through right now, and I have to say, I'm in my 50s, and I feel like I have never been so excited about the possibilities. And now I think what I'm doing is I'm taking a look at the fact that I'm not just hosting things on the side. Now, years and years later, I can say, hey, I host a lot of stuff and I do a pretty good job. And I think people are happy with the results. I am in the process right now of setting up my company, which I will be debuting this year, and it will have its own website. And I just finished a sizzle reel that it's like 2 minutes of, here's 2 minutes of all different things that I've done. So when people are thinking about utilizing me as a host, a lot of times they'll say, like, what have you done? And I wanted to be able to give them something where...
So this is a company then around being the host and MC and those sorts of things?
Yeah.
I think I need to be your PR person, because I just think you got to sell that. You're like, here are my sizzle reel, the amazing moments of Jim. It's not just, here's what I'm good at.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was told you earlier. I'm always like the last person to be convinced. I'm always the guy that's like, well, I think I can host your event. I think you really like it.
Here's how it will become epic.
It's a kick-ass sizzle reel, though. It shows me flying like a fairy across the stage in 1 second.
Wait, it really does?
Yeah, with wings.
Why did we not talk about this earlier?
I don't know. Well, it's an awesome thing. I'm in a kilt. I'm interviewing people on the red carpet. I think I may have, Dick Cook, who used to run the studios. Yeah. I interviewed him on the red carpet, and while I was interviewing, I made him pour Carpet Fresh, and he was vacuuming the Carpet Fresh up. And he did it. He was like such an awesome guy. He was just like, yeah, Cool.
So wait, so the website's not up yet, right? So that and this
Website is
and
not
the sizzle reel is going on the website. Is that when we'll see it?
Yes.
It's not available anywhere else?
I may post it on Facebook just to take a look. So
Because if there was a possibility that we could have that
Yeah.
to at least link to or show, I would love to show that.
let's do it.
Okay.
I do need you as a PR person.
Yes.
So I will get that video to you, and then we'll
be amazing.
and then we'll make it sound epic.
Epic.
Epic is the word.
Absolutely. We've talked more about this kind of change or the shift of your focus a little bit. And I think that's what's so interesting and powerful, because I don't talk to a lot of people that have that moment. You know, we talk about a lot of like they're a singer or whatever. And I think what's so interesting that you've just been sharing is that, gosh, you've done a lot of cool things, but there's so much more to do and you're excited about it. And I think that's a great lesson to take out of this. Like, you know, your dreams aren't done until you're done. Like, keep going. Like, there's more to do.
Right.
It's exciting. What kind of advice would you give somebody who was just starting out in a career, who maybe quite wasn't sure where they wanted to go, but they were really open to possibilities? Is there any advice you'd give them?
Well, based on, I think, the learning from my life, I would first tell them, don't worry about everything, because I think that's how I spent a lot of my time growing up. Is like I've worried. Can
you give me an example of that?
Yeah, back in the day, you know, if I was doing something at work, or if I had a hosting gig or something like that, I would be worried about it, and so all of my time was really spent on what might happen, what could happen. Oh my gosh, what if this happens?
Like the what if game.
It's the totally what if game. And I think I'm to the point now in my life where I'm not concentrating on the what if. I'm concentrating on, hey, I'm going to get excited about this, and I'm trying to visualize the good that's going to come from it. But I would tell people that are just starting out to explore and look at everything and follow things that make them passionate. Like today, I'm doing comedy all the time, but it started by sitting in a room thinking, oh my gosh, that was really funny. I want to do that. So I chased that poor woman out of the room and said, how do I do that? And then I got into a class, and then I did this. So, you know, if you see something that sparks your interest or sparks your passion, look into it. And it might start out as something small, and it will continue to grow. Everything doesn't have to happen at once.
Well, Jim, this has been a lot of fun.
I feel so famous. I feel like I'm famous and I'm talking on this podcast. That's nice.
Fancy podcast and mic.
Yeah. And I'm big in Taiwan, you know.
You will be. You will be. You don't know. And also Africa. I have some countries in Africa that are very popular. And
I'm ready.
We're going to show the sizzle reel and put some amazing music on it.
There's more to come. This is just the beginning.
Oh, this is so good.
I know.
So good.
I'm very happy and thankful for everything that's happened to me. It's just, it's so cool to talk about it. And I during my 30th anniversary, they had a little party for me, and they were asking me to tell funny stories of things that have happened over the years. And so as I was standing up there talking about some of these funny things, like the time I got accidentally connected to a parade float on Main Street in a rainstorm. That was fun. Or I was walking with Michael Eisner, and he fell down the stairs in front of me. And, you know, like these crazy things that have happened. I was like, I'm a pretty lucky guy. This has been an awesome life, let me tell you.
I can't believe you pushed Michael Eisner down.
I did not say
Yeah. Wait, I'm sorry.
Don't tell anybody.
I misheard that.
Anybody who's listening.
Nobody listens to this, so you know they won't hear about the Michael Eisner story.
Right.
Oh, yeah, that is really kind of amazing. You do need a talk show.
Wow.
So you just need to become best friends with Ellen, and it will happen.
I know. Well, in the right light, I look like her. So,
well, maybe we can put us side by side for you.
Dim
on
the lights.
Website.
We'll get rid of her, and
yeah,
there we go. Thank you so much.
All right, my pleasure. Thank you, Jim. That's it for the episode. But hold on, before you hit that stop button, here's a few more things you may not know about. Did you know I share other amazing stories, ideas, and creative spotlights each week? It's all to spark your imagination and power creativity. Just go to awesomefinds.info. That's AWESOMEFINDS.info to find out more and sign up. And it's, of course, all free. If you want original weekly articles that help you follow your passion, find your purpose or to learn from other amazing people, check out the articles at accidentalinformation.com. If you want to share your feedback about this episode or the show, send us an email at info@accidentalinformation.com or call us at 1-707-347-9312. You can follow along with me and see behind the scenes of the show and my adventures. So come find me on Instagram and Twitter at @MeChristopher. That's MECHRISTOPHER. You can also follow along with Accidental Information on Instagram and Facebook at Accidental Information or on Twitter at Accidental Info. Lastly, if you love the show and want to help me out, I'd love it if you told a friend about the show. As in literally text someone or email it to them. I cannot tell you how awesome that would be. Also, writing a review for the show wherever you listen to podcasts helps in a really big way too. Thanks to everyone listening and joining me in my story. We'll talk again next week when we hear from another big, inspiring story.